Is it a myth that only high-end watch brands gain value over time? Today we're taking a look at this Seiko brand to see if these watches could earn you big bucks in the future. What we'll do is we'll take a look at 7 iconic Seiko watches and look at their return on investment in the past 10 years. And then I'll give you the 5 commandments of the Seiko speculator. Before getting into the subject, I just want to explain quickly how I did the calculations. What I did is I went on camel.com, a website with a very funny name that provides insightful information. What they do is they go back 10 years and they'll give you the price of any object sold on Amazon at any given point in time. So I estimated how much one would have paid back in 2010 or 2011 for a certain Seiko watch. And then I took a look at the last 10 sales on eBay for the same watch to estimate how much it is worth today on the pre-owned market. And from these two pieces of information, I estimated the return on investment of these 7 iconic Seiko watches. The first watch I researched is the Seiko SKX007, probably the most popular Seiko watch of the past 10 years or so. You can see that this one was sold by Amazon in 2010 for $140 brand new. This is a mind-blowing bargain because it only went up after that. Indeed, the same watch today is worth around $280 according to the last 10 eBay sales. This means that one could have doubled his money in the past decade with the Seiko SKX. So it's pretty insane to double your money with a watch. The compounded return is just a bit over 7%. Which is much better than any bonds I can think of, except that bonds you cannot wear on your wrists, which makes the SKX probably a better investment. But maybe take this figure with a grain of salt because I didn't include sales tax and I didn't account for maintenance if needed for the 7S26 movement. Next, I took a look at the Seiko SARB035. Whereas the SKX is the king of Seiko diver watches, the SARB035 is the undisputed king of affordable dress watches. This one's a bit peculiar because Amazon only started selling it in 2018, so I had to rely on third-party sellers for prior prices. In 2012, it was selling for around $500, so not a cheap price. But then the price kept steadily going down for a few years up until 2018, where Amazon started selling it for $320 brand new. Another mind-blowing bargain because someone who bought it at that price and sold it back for the average price of around $490 today would have made an astounding 15.5% return on his investment, which is give or take the same as the S&P 500 index for the same period, which once again, you cannot wear the S&P 500 on your wrist, but you could with the SARB035, making it another quite interesting investment. But as you'll see a bit later on, not all Seiko watches are profitable like these first two. The price increase of the first 2 watches didn't surprise me that much because they're so popular, but I wanted to see what would happen with the price of a watch like the Seiko SNK809, which is also quite a bit popular, but this one was mass produced. For the 14 years or so production run, Seiko pumped out massive numbers of these SNK809, so I wanted to see how that would reflect on the pre-owned prices in 2021. And you can see that people that bought it back in 2010 lost a bit of money on it when taking into account sales taxes and maintenance. But people that were patient enough could wait 6 years and buy it for $42 from Amazon in 2016. This person would go on to almost double his money over the next 5 years. And this goes to show that it's not necessary for a watch to be scarce or to be made in low numbers for it to appreciate in value. You simply need to wait for the right moment and buy it at a good bargain price. Next, I wanted to see what would happen with the price of a less popular Seiko watch like the SNK793. This one is also part of the Seiko 5 collection, but it's much less in demand than the SNK809. And for this reason, there are still plenty of brand new watches available today, even though it was discontinued at the same time as the SNK809. Which obviously has a negative effect on the resale value of your pre-owned SNK793. You can see that most SNK793 buyers ended up with a loss, but even people that bought it at the all-time low price of $45 ended up making just under 4% in annualized return. This is not great, but it shows that value retention can be possible even for lesser known Seiko watches, as long as you can find a good bargain. The first 4 watches are all mechanical watches, and we know that mechanical Seiko timepieces are always in high demand, but I wanted to see what would happen with the pre-owned prices of quartz Seiko watches. I chose the SGF204 because it's pretty iconic. There's a lot of demand for it because it's an homage to the Rolex Datejust, and you can see that this one was always very overpriced when comparing the brand new prices to the eventual pre-owned market. Even people that bought it at the all-time low ended up with quite a big loss on this one, which indicates that you should steer clear from quartz Seiko watches if you're looking strictly for value retention or value increase. With the SUP880, I wanted to see if the same could be said about solar-powered Seiko watches, and you can tell that it fared a bit better than the SGF204, but most people still lost plenty of money on the SUP880, although it's also popular for being a not-so-subtle homage of the Cartier tank. But as I said, if you're not buying a mechanical Seiko watches, you shouldn't expect value retention because those are the Seiko watches that lose most value pretty quickly usually. Last but not least, I took a look at the Seiko SRPD, also called the 5KX because it's the successor of the SKX. This one was released in early 2020, so it's still right out of the oven. And I thought it wouldn't be fair to only take a look at the prices of old Seiko watches. I wanted to see what would happen with these brand new releases. And you can tell that most buyers got absolutely obliterated on this one. It's not sold by Amazon yet, so I had to rely on Long Island Watches, Joma Shop, etc. to figure out an average price as of today, which is around 250 bucks and maybe 200 or 220 if you can have a really good deal. But no matter at what price you buy it for brand new, you will lose a ton of money if you're selling it right away. Which leads me to explain kind of the life cycle of a Seiko watch. They start out pretty expensive, and then after a few years the hype dies down and they can be had for much less money, and then after it's been discontinued it will start sharply rising in price if it's an iconic popular Seiko watch, of course. To conclude the video, I'm gonna give the 5 commandments of a Seiko speculator. Number 1, thou shalt not mod thy Seiko. I've learned this one from looking at the SKX market. I didn't include any modded SKXs in my price average from eBay because these modded Seiko SKXs are always worth a bit less than the stock OEM versions. So there's absolutely no sense in spending extra money on mods that you'll never recoup. And these modded Seiko watches are also a bit harder to sell because not everyone has the same tastes. Number 2, thou shalt take care of thy Seiko. This is true for any watches. If you have the most expensive watch in the world but you break it, it will be worthless. So take care of your Seiko. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't wear it, but maybe wear it once or twice a week instead of every day. Take it off before going to the gym or getting into the shower, and maybe develop a bit of wrist awareness, so when you're crossing doorways, try not to hit it on doorknobs, etc. And it will do wonders for the value retention of your Seiko over the long term. Number 3, thou shalt wait for a bargain. We've seen with the Seiko SNK809 that it's not necessary to buy a limited edition Seiko watch for value increase, but you should wait for an excellent deal to make sure that your watch will retain as much of its value as possible. Number 4, thou shalt hold for the long term. This is another one we've seen with the SARB035 and probably later on with the SRPD. Seiko watches don't increase in value early in their life stages. You'll have to wait a few years after discontinuation to see any noticeable price increase. This is because most retailers keep a pretty huge inventory, so they'll be able to sell brand new examples for a year or two after discontinuation. But after that is when you'll see major price increases on your watch. Last but not least, thou shalt not expect a positive return. A Seiko watch is not a safe investment vehicle by any means. You should first and foremost buy a Seiko watch because you like it and you want to wear it. and if you see any price increase, then you should see it as a bonus. That being said, there are ways to maximize the value retention of your Seiko by waiting for a good bargain and holding for the long term. You can make sure that you'll get as much value as possible out of your Seiko watch. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Leave a comment below with your experience on Seiko watches. Did you lose money on it? Did you flip one over for a profit? I'm interested in what you guys have to say. And if you enjoyed the content, please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys around next time.